Will LeBron guard Paul George more? Can Doc Rivers dig his team out of the hole they're in? Does anyone have a shot at beating the Warriors? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown Podcast. I am joined as always by Coach Dave Dufour, every Monday. We're going to go through the weekend in a little bit of a bleary-eyed manner, I would imagine, right, Dave?
Yeah. This was the best weekend we've had for basketball in a long time, but also a crazy weekend as well.
Oh, I know.
Just so many games.
Yeah, I'm all hopped up on cake and sugar, and I'm ready to go. Although I might crash in the middle of this. We'll see how we do, but certainly I'm ready to start. So I guess we should start with Saturday's games. They had a full slate, and we had a Pacers-Cavaliers, and the Pacers gave the Cavs all they could handle. I mean, like within an inch of their life, just about had it, and missed on a last-second shot. That was a pretty good look. Let's go backwards on that one. What did you think of the last play?
Okay, so as listeners of the podcast who also watched our post-game show already know, I actually fell asleep when the Cavs had like an 11-point lead. So I had to go back after that embarrassing moment and rewatch the last play. And so I don't really have a problem with it. I think it was actually – he got a good look. I would love to have seen him maybe hit Paul George on the cut.
Yeah,
I think that would have been fantastic. But no, I was okay with CJ Miles taking that shot. I mean, it's an open shot, end of game scenario, and any open shot is a good one, right?
Yeah, they could have gotten better action to attack it, but that was like the safe pass they could make. Paul George later kind of half threw him under the bus and said, like, I have to take that shot, and I talked to him, whatever. And it's true. It would be nice to have seen him take that shot as well. But, when you're looking at the expected point value of these different shots, I would imagine that shot has to be pretty close to whatever Paul George would have gotten against LeBron.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm comfortable with CJ Miles, who's a pretty good shooter, taking an open jump shot. Like, I think that it's bad form on Paul George's part to say something like that. I mean, I get it. He's the star. And I mean, he was fantastic in that game, 29, 5, 7, played really good defense. I mean, he basically was, 6 of 8 from downtown. He was basically getting anything he wanted offensively. And so I understand sort of where he's coming from. But at the same time, it is a team sport. You're not going to ever have a case where one guy just does everything.
Right.
And has success. So.
Well, yeah, and then also, just as a general overview of the series, I'm going to call LeBron out. I'm going to call Tyronn Lue out. He's not guarding Paul George, and if he doesn't, they're going to be in for a world of pain. And by the way, they might be able to sweep this series, but I bet you all these games are going to go down to the wire like this, and they're going to expend a lot of energy, and they have no answer for Paul George without LeBron guarding him. And I thought it was kind of not bad form, but kind of embarrassing. He's guarded Monte Ellis. And again, McMillan also has had a very poor showing in my mind. And even still, they walked away feeling good by themselves. But still, they didn't have Ellis attack on pin downs with LeBron guarding him, which would have been a really good idea. And then they don't go to Miles Turner when Kevin Love was guarding him. Kind of inexplicable for playoff basketball.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the Nate McMillan hiring when it happened last summer. I just don't think he's a great coach. I think he's been a pretty good assistant, it seems, and obviously, he's got the basketball pedigree. But I just don't know that he's great at getting his teams prepared, and that's how they looked for most of the game. They really did look like they were just not well coached. And the other thing is their rotations were not good. I mean, Jeff Teague was getting attacked every single time he was on the court. The Cavs were just going at him. And then on the offensive end, I mean, he puts up 15 points, but like 3 of 10 shooting. He went to the line a lot, but really just didn't do much. He was borderline unplayable for them, especially if he's not hitting shots, if he's not scoring for you. I don't see how you can keep him on the court. And I think that, Lance Stevenson was fantastic. He was +7 for the game. and really just was the only guy besides Paul George that was creating for other people and creating his own shot. I mean, he was really fantastic.
Right.
I felt. I thought that, like Paul George was obviously the best player for them, but I think Lance Stevenson was the most important player to get this game close.
Yeah, and he played 27 minutes, and he probably should have played like 25. Like with Lance, you got to figure out just as you can play him just long enough before he hurts you. And I think down the stretch, a couple of wonky plays that hurt them. And also it could have been they're not used to him. He's still new, but he'll do something that'll hurt you as well. But he was very good. Teague was very bad, and then hits a three at the end in crunch time that actually was instrumental. I think gave him a lead, I believe, at the very late. And so he kind of saved the day a little bit there, but it kind of fell apart. And then like when we talk about bad coaching, they had a moment in the second quarter or something where J.R. Smith gets a wide open shot on an out of bounds play because they're not guarding their men. They didn't know who they were guarding, and you think they would have liked that 3-pointer back?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you lose a game by one, and you can start to kind of pick all of the spots where you just gave up easy buckets. And that J.R. Smith 3, for a guy that he really hasn't found his rhythm shooting yet since he returned from injury, any kind of contest against that guy, and you're lowering his percentage significantly.
Or just how about all five guys know who they are guarding before the ball is inbounded? I mean, that's as simple as that. They also blew a shot clock violation when they had an out of bounds play to know what everyone knew was happening, and they blew that one. And that's, let's not call it 2 points or 3. Let's say just call it 1. Well, now you're dealing with like 4 points that you're already giving away, and that was, believe me, the tip of the iceberg. So kind of frustrating because, that's the kind of stuff that, if the Pacers were to have stolen game 1 on the road, that changes the complexion of this whole series. And now, I bet you the Cavs will probably win. They'll probably win going away in game 2. They'll go into Indiana up 2-0. And probably more of a ho-hum first-round series.
Yeah, I agree. Has this changed your mind at all about the series? Do you think you thought it was going to be a sweep, right?
Oh, you know what? I don't remember, but I didn't have high hopes for the Pacers, but certainly after game 1, if the Cavs are going to defend like this, and by the way, everybody yelled at me when I asked on Twitter if LeBron is going to get the same kind of shit as Curry does for supposedly not guarding the point guards. They're all like, well, he's 32 and he's played all these years. I'm like, well, I thought that was the whole point of the regular season was to coast through that. So that he'd be ready now. And I guess, no, he's not. He's saving himself for the conference finals. Well, let me tell you, another game like this, and the conference finals will not be in their cards. Wow. All right. If I don't see anything better out of them, going forward, I don't know. They're going to get beat by. I mean, they can get beat by Washington playing like this.
I agree, and we will talk about Washington when we get to that game. But let's move to the shocker from yesterday with Milwaukee really beating the shit out of the Raptors. I mean, there's no other way to say that. Like they dominated this game.
Oh yeah, and it was all. I mean, the Greek Freak. But here's the thing: my favorite part about it was that the Greg Monroe, his stats were good. But he was a plus 15, but he deserved the game ball. I mean, he made crucial play after crucial play and was that low post presence that they've been looking for as a veteran to come in and not be intimidated by the moment. He was just terrific. And then you have the Greek Freak was just out of this world. I mean, he's a guy who's gonna. We might look back at let's just say they win the series or whatever. We might look back and wonder why he wasn't in the conversation for MVP this year.
It's funny that's a conversation that I've heard quite a bit since yesterday's game. And he was amazing, and he's the easy thing to talk about. But I'm glad you brought up Greg Monroe. I actually talked about him as being one of the keys to this series for Milwaukee because, they need to match the size that Toronto has inside. And Monroe is kind of the only more traditional big that can do that. And he had 15 rebounds, but 5 offensive rebounds. That's just huge for this team. Mm-hmm. They don't really shoot the lights out. And so anytime they can snag those boards, it's just so important. And he had 5. They only had 9 as a team, and he had 5 of them. I just thought that was massive. But also his defense was really good. And this is something I've seen, for the last few months. He's been very active, and he plays so well with Chris Middleton. I mean, Middleton was plus 27 on the game, and didn't shoot well at all, but had 9 assists. Like this was I don't know. This is why the Bucks, I think, are a little bit scary. Like they can do some things defensively, and if they could just score enough, like they did yesterday. I mean, they only put 97 points, but holding the Raptors to 83 points that's something. I mean, the Raptors shot 36% for the game. I mean, you're not going to win many games shooting that low. So
right, yeah, and then DeRozan had another typical playoff performance where he shot very poorly, got to the line, so he had 27 points and 8 rebounds, but really ineffectual. Like I felt like they were quiet points, wasn't there when they needed him at all. And then Kyle Lowry kind of looks like what we thought he was going to look like when he came back, even though he did shoot well for like 2 of those 3 games he came back. We thought, oh, well, then this wrist must be healed and whatever. But this is more typical than I thought was going to happen. 0 for 6 from 3 and really screwing the pooch down the stretch as well. It's
playoff Kyle Lowry, though. I mean, I like to sometimes write some of those things off, but we're getting a big enough sample size, I think, where there's definitely a drop off from regular season Lowry to playoff Lowry in shooting. It's like really he just misses some threes that he would normally make, like wide open ones, and it's just I cannot come up with an explanation for it.
Right. I mean, it's funny because he's my height. He's not that fast. He's not that athletic. And yet he drives the basket and gets his shot off in there too. And that's always what has been more amazing to me than anything else. But when you get into the playoffs, and that's a whole other beast, that's the other issue. It's like suddenly those shots are even harder, and they're ISOing to get them. I had vined when Casey was forced to call a timeout in that fourth quarter, and it was looking really bad. I said that he probably can't sit down because he's going to burn his ass. That seat is so hot right now.
Yeah, I mean, if Toronto somehow loses this series, I don't think there's any way Casey has this job next year. And I like Dwayne Casey. I actually think he's a pretty decent coach. I think he's gotten a lot out of the talent that he has. But this is probably the most talent this team has had ever during this run. And to have a first round failure after getting Ibaka, after getting PJ Tucker, I think that I just don't see a way that he would keep his job.
Right, I agree. I'm not that high on him either. I've been pretty brutal, and I probably maybe more than I needed to be. But I don't know. I just feel like I call it like I see it, and I feel like I just haven't seen enough on his end from rotation stuff and who he plays to what they run that makes me feel that he is in that upper level of coaching, rankings. And it's interesting. We'll have to see how they come out. I imagine the crowd's going to be crazy, and they're going to come out really strong. And the Raptors will probably have like a big lead, and then we'll get to find out what the Bucks are made of.
That's right. I mean, the Giannis dunking on everyone during that game yesterday really took the crowd out of it. And Toronto's crowd is fantastic, and so it's not easy to get them out of the game. But man, Giannis was something else. Okay, so Memphis, San Antonio. This one, I feel like we can just kind of recap this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard with 32 points, 11 of 14 shooting, 9 of 9 from the line. Amazing defense. He actually there was a Conley Gasol pick and roll, and Kawhi Leonard did everything that you would ever want a defender to do on the primary ball handler. First he denies the screen, and then Conley is good, right? Like Conley is a savvy pick and roll ball handler. He gets to the screen, so they do a little bit of a switch, and Kawhi now has to cut off the pass to Gasol. But then they switch back, and before you know it, Kawhi is back up on Conley, pressuring the ball, gets him to throw the ball away. And it's just, you watch something like that happen, and it's hard to say, wow, this guy is not the best defender in the league. I mean, it's such a toss-up between him and Draymond Green to me. Mm-hmm. But every time, it's like I go back and forth because when we talk about the Golden State game that was today, right? There's a textbook Draymond game.
Yeah,
so anyway,
it's really, really tough, and they're both so good and they're so smart positional wise. They not only are they already quick and long arms and all that stuff, but they also increase their advantage because they're there early to spots. It's really a
they anticipate. It's funny, they anticipate things on that Jordan Pippen level. You know, like I don't think I've ever seen, or at least sensed, those two guys, people anticipating what's happening when they're playing defense the way that Kawhi and Draymond do. I mean, they're just everywhere. It's insane. But anyway, so quick recap. That's it.
Yeah. Well, although I do want to say one thing, because in the first half it was a bit of a close game, and Memphis had a lead for a little bit. You know, when I've said it before, when Gasol plays like he's a 25-point per game scorer is when they're at their best. And he actually ended up having 32 points and 5 boards. But, you know, he gets disconnected at some point and doesn't get as aggressive as he needs to be. And I feel like they need to just play through him almost every time and expect him to shoot it. Like, he needs to take 24 shots a game. He needs to take at least 6 more, I would say.
Yeah,
and just
he should
really
have
go
had
at
40.
it.
He should have had 40 yesterday. And I feel like when you've got a Mike Conley, I understand you want to put the ball in his hands, let him make things happen. But when he's off the court and you've got Gasol out there, I would love to see them just put a bunch of really great cutters around him and kind of run like what Denver does with Jokic. Not having Tony Allen really hurts, although who was it that was guarding? Oh, Wayne Selden guarding Kawhi was very, very interesting. He's got the physicality to be able to handle him a little bit, but Kawhi is just, you know, he's just too good right now.
Yeah, he really is. So we'll see that. This series is going to be over. I think they're going to, you know, they'll probably sweep them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a sweep. I just think the Spurs are really, really, really great. I mean, yeah, the Spurs, I think, have a shot at possibly beating Golden State. I don't know that anybody else does, but I think the Spurs have a chance. So they're just, you know, they're on that next level. Utah Clippers.
Interesting game. Went down to the wire. Joe Johnson is doing his thing like he's been doing for years. It was an interesting end, by the way. It came up it came up with my buddy Eric Pincus got roasted a little bit, and no one, you know, I don't know if anyone knew that was his voice asking Doc Rivers, and maybe I just outed him. But sorry, Eric, I love you. But the Clippers were able to tie the game with 10 seconds to go. You know, even though they had the ball. You know, they could have shot it earlier or later than that, like held it for the last shot.
Sure.
And so the question was, why didn't you, like, why would you have considered holding it longer so that the Jazz would not get the ball back for the game winner? And Doc Rivers, did you see what Doc Rivers said?
I did not see that.
He goes, that's about the stupidest question I've ever heard. Something like that. And basically he's right. You know, if you're down by 2, you have to go, and you have to get it, you know, the best shot you can get as quickly as you can without forcing it or rushing it, because if you miss, you will need to maybe get a rebound, or you got to have time to foul and get the ball back. If you hold it to the last time, then, you know, you're going to basically, all you could do is maybe tie it. You know, the other argument against it, I suppose, is that, okay, you tie it, and now you're giving the ball back to the other team to win the game with plenty of time. You can't really play it that way, right? You got to play it for the percentages of, if you miss, you can rebound or get a foul. Yeah,
exactly. I think that you got to take the buckets you can get, and when you're down and trying to hit a shot with as little time possible left on the clock, you don't have that luxury. So the big story to me, like Joe Johnson hitting that game winner was amazing, and the Jazz stealing a game, you know, in LA is huge for the Jazz. But losing Rudy Gobert 10 seconds into the game, that's a crusher. And, you know, as of right now, there's no news as to whether he'll be back. But the way he went down, it did not look good. I'll be happy if he's able to come back in this series. But man, the way that injury looked, it did not look great for those prospects. It
was funny to me. I thought it was like, oh, it's not that bad from the one angle I saw, but then you saw the other angle from the side, and you saw that the knee bowed laterally, and that was like, yeah. Now I don't think he has. What was the results? Did we get the results yet from the MRI?
I haven't heard anything.
Somebody told me on Twitter they did, and like during the game they got him back. I'm like, really? They already had the results back that fast? But I haven't seen anything else. But I'm not even sure. I don't think he probably didn't tear anything, but I'm sure he really stretched those tendons out. And that's a tough one. He's so long that if your knee is loose at all like that, then he can't come back on the court unless they can get him tightened up.
Well, what the MRI showed was that there was no ligament damage, but he's got a bone bruise, which is what kept KD out for what was it, a month?
Yeah, but I would imagine when you say that bone bruise is more like about pain, how much pain you can take.
There's some, but also like you said, it could be like a mild sprain, of the ligaments in the knee, and then you're more susceptible to further injury and things like that. And like, if you're Utah, you have to think about the long-term health of Rudy Gobert. Mm-hmm. 7-footers are notorious for having bad knees and feet and stuff like that. So like, you don't want to push a guy to play through a knee injury. As a matter of fact, you got to probably protect him from himself a little bit. I know Rudy Gobert is a gamer and would probably be willing to come back and play on a sprained knee, but for the long-term health of your franchise, you just can't do that.
Yeah, and it's also a very bad form on the Clippers' point of view that they lost this game without Rudy Gobert playing. I mean, that cannot happen at home in the opening game of the series. It's just really bad form. And they got good. Chris Paul played well. Blake Griffin didn't shoot well, but got filled up the points. But that was about it. I mean, they ended up sort of not really having a threat, and then they got caught with their pants down. I'm not even sure what you else would have done because they had Jamal Crawford out there in the last possession that they had, and without the Jazz calling timeout, very, very smartly, Quinn Snyder knew he could get a mismatch with Joe Johnson, and there was nothing that Doc Rivers could do. So the only other question there was, well, should he have taken Jamal Crawford out for that last possession? But I don't think you can. He's your second best scorer out there, and you're down by 2. So I don't think that was even a choice, right?
No, it wasn't a choice. And I will say, if we're going to second guess him a little bit, when Gobert goes out, then you've got this huge advantage in the middle. DeAndre Jordan is such a freak athlete, and he only took 7 shots last night. He only went to the free throw line once, and so I just think that's a little bit inexcusable. You really got to find a way to not feed the post, but they should have just been running Chris Paul, DJ pick and rolls all night. I mean, he had a big game on the glass. He had 15 boards, but you need a little bit more DJ. I think he needs more touches with Gobert out. And this will be the only time I ever say that.
Well, I've seen enough of his post-ups throughout the years to think that he should be getting a few of those a game, and it's kind of throw the guy a bone. And, he's working so hard on defense. Let him post up twice or 3 times. Who's going to remember it anyway? And you know what? I've seen him do a nice move, a dream shakes, right-handed over the left shoulder hook, and it goes in. So there's something there. There's ability there that he could do, and that would help them without question because, to watch Blake Griffin get those post-ups makes me absolutely beside myself.
Yeah.
And in every game, he invents some new, bizarre, unfundamental way to attack the basket.
Listen, man, hey, there's no such thing as a fundamental. This guy he's rewriting the rule book on footwork in the post.
Right.
That's all it
is.
Okay, crazy. So all right, so today's games, Sunday's games, I should say.
Yes.
Our favorite guys to watch, the Washington Wizards. They beat Atlanta by 7, but it felt like they won by like 20. They really the starters for the Wizards. I mean, this has been a theme all season. The starters for the Wizards were plus 18, plus 20, plus 21, plus 8, plus 21. John Wall being the lowest of that group, plus 8. The bench was minus 13, minus 16, minus 10, minus 5, minus 9. I mean, Satoransky was minus 5. He only played 2 minutes. So maybe we throw that out. But still, this has been the problem for the Wizards all season long. Their starters are fantastic, and their bench is terrible. So they only won by, like I said, they only won by 7, but they handled this game.
Right.
Markieff Morris was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was great. And there's not enough superlatives for John Wall. I mean, he was beating him down the court and getting in transition or early offense and 14 assists. He was just very impressive. Then you got Beal, who just does yeoman's work. Didn't shoot great, but like just gets his 22 points. Kelly Oubre off the bench did very well. Like I know his plus minus was low, but he ended up having 11 points and 3 boards and assist and hit a 3. That was a nice 3 that got him going. And he's just that guy. I mean, if they can get any other kind of production out of one of those other guys coming off the bench, then they're certainly in good enough shape to handle the Hawks.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Wizards only shot 28% from deep in this game. So, and then, the biggest thing that stood out to me was the way that the Wizards were officiated. They took 17 free throws, and Atlanta took 39.
Yeah.
And somehow still won this game running away. Like I said, they only won by 7, but it felt much bigger.
Yeah.
So I think that this was a big win for the Wizards. I know that they probably felt like they had a lot of pressure because they had such a good season. And I thought they did well, and they're so much fun to watch when they're out and running.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love watching John Wall out there leading the break. He's so fast and creative. There was highlights to be had in that game for sure. And so the Hawks, I would imagine they come back home down 2-0. And this is the question of, can the Wizards get enough of the experience of the playoffs in this series to then, allow them to compete with the Cavs without that experience? They're simply not going to have the same amount of experience that the Cavs have. All those guys have played at least those 3 years of deep championship runs. So they're going to need to get it on a fly. It kind of reminds me of like when the Bulls beat Cleveland with the Michael Jordan, the shot in '89. And as far as I remember, they ended up playing the Knicks the next round, and it's kind of like they couldn't believe they were there, but like they rode that momentum right to the conference finals against the Pistons, and it was one of those things where this is what the Wizards probably are hoping they can do is win that first round, is kind of ride the momentum and can keep going and get that confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. Portland Golden State, the Warriors won by 12 despite Klay Thompson going 6 of 16 from the field. Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant put up one of the easiest 30-point games I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he was 12 of 20. He didn't look like he was breaking a sweat out there. I mean, it was fantastic. To me, the real star of the game was Ian Clark, though. Like 12 points in 12 minutes. And just that guy is so good. And he's going to get paid big time this summer. He's going to be one of those people that next season people are going to say, wow, I can't believe this guy is making $15 million a year or whatever he's going to make. But he's a really good player.
Yeah, well, I mean, or the argument's going to be he's going to get wherever else he's going to go, not get in the same situation and really struggle. I can't tell with him because it's up and down. There are times when he's not like the best player on the floor, but he is really, like you said, like he's the guy who's like making them go. Which is crazy when you got guys like Durant and Curry. But we'll have to kind of see. What I liked about what was going on with the rotations is how, I like how Kerr is managing these guys where he's able to have like Klay and Draymond on the same time and let Curry and KD rest, and they can flip that. So, he's never without, a nice balance.
Yeah, by the way, I'm an idiot because the star of the game was Draymond Green for the Warriors. Sorry. Ian Clark was great, but Draymond with the 19, 12, 9 assists, 5 blocks, 3 steals, and how many highlight defensive plays did he make in that game?
Well, I'm going to do a quickie breakdown tomorrow on this game, and it's just going to focus on his defense because I have a feeling if I go through the other half-court possessions, I'm going to see even more that like people didn't point out or we didn't see that were low-key because – I mean, it was a tour de force, and he was everywhere. I mean, they're going to wake up in the middle of the night. The Blazers are, with nightmares, yelling Draymond because, he had a block on, and I know it was on Damian Lillard, who was, 5 inches shorter than him, whatever he is, but he came all the way from the corner on a break, saw the play, sprinted, elevated, beautiful block. Just all those plays every play he made on the defensive end was more impressive than the last.
Yeah, he was incredible. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Lillard and McCollum. Those guys were spectacular, especially in the first half. Mm-hmm. And CJ McCollum had 27 at halftime, was getting to any spot he wants on the court. Those two guys were amazing. They put up 75 combined points. The problem is that the rest of the team only put up, 34?
Yeah.
So like we talked about when we were previewing the playoffs and this series in particular, Dame and CJ can score 80, but the rest of the team has to do something, and they're just not doing enough. And, we've talked a lot about Cleveland flipping a switch come playoff time. Well, Golden State sort of flips a switch during games where they really lock in defensively, and that powers their offense. And yesterday was just a clinic. The fourth quarter was just insane defensively.
Yeah, it was breathtaking, and like when they went on that run, they broke the game. It was intimidating just to watch. They were that good defensively, which is the reason why I even on Twitter was like they will win the title. Like there is nobody that can match that intensity and that length. And all the things that they can do, and I feel like I got to look at the number or the lineup data, but I feel like we didn't even see the lineup of death much. Maybe like later in the fourth. I just remember like KD came in a little bit later. I got to look.
They played a little bit in the first, I know for sure. I can't remember when they went on that run. I think Livingston was out there.
Right, and so yeah, I feel like they got that turn without him out there, and then the other thing was they were able to extend the lead a little bit before I think before KD came back, and I think before Curry came back in the fourth, and which is just huge for them because then they come back in and then bam, then they can just end the game right away.
And then to me, like one of the most important stats is that Draymond played 37 minutes, KD played 36, Steph Curry played 36. Klay Thompson played 35. So they were able to win this game in the playoffs, running away, and they kept their guys' minutes in check. Like CJ played 41 minutes.
Yeah.
LeBron played.
Let me just say, CJ was amazing.
He was,
but on the defensive end too, he was giving all out in great position for a lot of those shots and doing really really well. Probably the best defense I've seen him play in his career. And I've seen quite a number of games. So
he was great, but you could tell in the fourth quarter they were running out of gas. The Blazers only had 15 team assists. So a lot of their buckets came on one-on-ones. Like Dame and CJ were on fire, but it was a lot of one-on-one stuff. Mm-hmm. And the Warriors are willing to let you take some tough one-on-one shots. If you hit them, you know what? You just tip the cap. But they're not letting you get a whole lot of easy buckets. And these guys happened to hit a lot of tough shots yesterday. So I don't expect to see this sort of performance going forward. I think that the rest of these games are going to be pretty easy for the Warriors.
Oh, really? I don't know. I'm sensing that we're going to have a lot of entertainment in store. I mean, again, easy is relative, but I think we're going to have some fun games. I bet you one of those guys is really going to go off, either Dame or CJ. I mean, like 50-something, and they might win that one. We'll see. But either way, it should be a fun series, no matter how long it is.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun to watch, and so I just think that Golden State is probably going to take care of it pretty easily.
Yeah.
Okay, so Boston and Chicago, which was the only upset that we've had so far. The second upset that we've had so far. It's late at night right now.
It is.
So first, very emotional for the Celtics. Isaiah Thomas's sister passed away in a car accident yesterday, and so that you could really feel like the emotion of this game. And Isaiah Thomas was spectacular, but the problem that we've talked about with Boston all season, Isaiah Thomas is their only guy who can create any sort of offense, and it reared its ugly head today. Because Jimmy Butler is a good defender, and they will just stick Jimmy Butler on Isaiah Thomas, and now you got to figure it out.
Yeah, it's a tough conundrum. I definitely feel like the issue that Isaiah is dealing with now, unfortunately, was hanging over their head too. And if they can get away from that a little bit as time, a couple of days go by or something, that might help them. And I imagine they're going to get the next game anyway, just because they're home. But yeah, no, it's a really interesting thing here because I think we both expected the Bulls to kind of lie down and sort of not necessarily be that excited that they were in the playoffs to begin with. Yeah,
so they destroyed Boston on the glass, just completely destroyed them. And this is the other thing that Boston has a hard time with. They were out rebounded by 17 total rebounds. They gave up 20 offensive rebounds to the Bulls. So the Bulls were getting tons of second chance opportunities. Jimmy Butler was pretty damn good. 30 points. Went to the line. He took 12 free throws. And that's a winning formula for the Bulls. Wade was actually okay. I mean, he was 4 of 12, but he wasn't a total garbage fire when he was out there. Mm-hmm. And Rondo was okay. It's kind of weird, man. Like, I don't know what is going to happen with this series, really. I know a lot of people think it's an upset waiting to happen. I still think the Celtics are going to win, but the Bulls showed today that they're just funky enough that they match up really well with the Celtics.
What's interesting for me is I had this theory, and we're kind of still compiling the data to figure out what the golden rule is, but the theory being that if you get out-rebounded, and you could even get out-rebounded and out-turnovered, or turn the ball over more than the other team, but if you get an X amount more threes, you'll win the game anyway. And the Warriors certainly showed us that, in the years past, where they would get out-rebounded, whatever, and they'd turn the ball over, but they'd win because they'd have 7 more threes than the other team. But this was an interesting game because the Celtics did hit 6 more threes. That's 18 extra points that they got from behind the three-point line, and yet they couldn't get any closer than 4. That bodes very poorly.
Yeah, I just don't know what they're going to do, how they're going to solve their offensive creation issues. Obviously, Brad Stevens is a good coach, but they're I don't know, man. They rely on one guy to initiate all of their offense on like 90% of their half-court possessions. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to figure something out and figure it out fast. I just maybe a little bit more Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, well, here's my thought: is if they go down 0-2, then I think they have to start Kelly Olynyk instead of Amir Johnson. They need to do something where at least Olynyk has somewhat of an ability to kind of stretch the floor a little bit more. Even though Amir hits some threes every once in a while, he doesn't have the ball handling ability that Olynyk does. And I have to imagine if they're down 0-2, they're going to have to do a lineup change. Unless they consider that panicking, but. Or you should be panicking. Down
right.
above 2 going to Chicago.
And you're the 1 seed, yeah, you should panic.
So I would imagine that would be the first thing they would do is get Olynyk in the starting lineup, and then in game 2, if it's going south early, they're going to have to it's just the lineups. They don't have any other choice. They have all the plays are the plays, and the coach. The only thing you can really meddle with too much is who you're playing when they come in or how early. So that would be my look for sure. Would be Olynyk getting more time. And yeah, maybe Jaylen Brown as well. I mean, certainly he did nicely when he was in there.
Yeah. And then we had OKC and Houston to wrap up the long weekend. That game just ended.
Yep.
James Harden was pretty spectacular, especially in the second half. 37 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Some really solid defense. And just, the Rockets won, 118-87.
It was close, though. It was very close up until, the beginning of the fourth quarter-ish. And I think that was what killed them, was that Russ went to the bench for much-needed rest, and that was it. They needed to get him in earlier. He only played 34 minutes. I mean, I think by that, once it kind of got out of hand, then they didn't have to deal with him going back to him again later in the fourth. But that's a real issue. When he's on the bench, it's like there's not much they can do.
Yeah, look, this is where the regular season, they didn't have these guys like Oladipo and, Kristen. They didn't have them doing enough creation when Russ wasn't out there. I mean, it didn't help that Oladipo went 1 for 12. It doesn't help that where was the other guy that I was talking about? Oh, it didn't help that Doug McDermott can only play 3 minutes. You just can't put him on the court. I mean, especially when Russ isn't out there, you need at least have some guys that can shoot, and he can shoot.
Yeah.
You can't play Cantor because he's going to get roasted in the pick and roll, and that's Houston's offense basically is to pick and roll, and they've got some really good bigs. Capella and Nene was great tonight. He was amazing tonight.
Yeah, but the real story here, the real story is Patrick Beverley.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I bind this one. He got flattened by a screen by Steven Adams, and it was definitely, a statement pick. I'm sure they're still remembering what Beverly did to Westbrook years ago and injuring his knee. But he laid some wood. He leaned into it. He turned his body for a little extra effect and a little extra physicality. No call. But the dude, not only did he get up from that, but Pat Riley was up and he was fine. He hits like 2 threes in a row out of that one, leading to the out of timeout. That basically gave them control of the game, and that was a more interesting, amazing thing than any of them all. Was that he was able to still hit a 3. He had his bell rung.
Oh yeah, dude, that guy. All right, so there's a bunch of guys that I really love in the NBA. Like I love Jay Crowder, right? I love Draymond Green. I love Pat Beverly. He's one of my favorite dudes to watch. Not only because he's actually a pretty good offensive player. There's a lot said about because I guess he plays next to Harden and he's such a hard-nosed defender that there's this misconception that he is a 0 on offense, but the guy can shoot threes. He can handle the rock. But he had 10 rebounds tonight. That's huge. They had 17 rebounds from their starting backcourt tonight.
Yeah. He was just making plays.
He was fantastic. He was amazing. Yeah.
And it's a great matchup to watch him go at Westbrook on the defensive end. And Westbrook did not do well against it. 6 for 23 from the field, 3 for 11 from the 3-point line, with a number of bad shots. I mean, we kind of got the bad Russ, the Russ that I would have expected for the playoffs. And I just did a video, and I'm doing a series. I'll do a next one on Harden, but why Russ was the MVP. The first one was why Kawhi was the MVP. And all the Russ fans got really mad at me, and I guess I kind of understand why. It was because I'm going through all his categories, and on Synergy, he's not ranked very high on some key categories like pick and roll. So I figured, well, all right, and with Kawhi is elite in every category he does mostly. And so there wasn't anything to show that he doesn't do well. But with Russ, I mean, he was almost dead last in a couple of these things. So I figured I might as well show them, what the downfalls are as well as how he scores and all that stuff. And man, I just got roasted, and it's you can't win when you try and talk to the Russ fans.
Yeah, so I mean, he's putting up numbers on volume, and so for people that are still stuck doing counting stats, right? This is the world we live in. Not to say that they don't matter, because if you score 30 points, you scored 30 points, right? That's great. But what was he taking? Six more shots per game than Harden? Yeah, something like that. So if you do Harden's points per shot, I'm pretty sure it works out. So Harden winds up averaging 36 points a game if he shoots the same amount as Russ. And then we're not even having this conversation. Right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, and again, it's an amazing season. It was a historical, and the triple doubles captured the narrative. He got a 1 rebound a game on the free throw that they're clearing out for him to get. If he doesn't get the triple double, is he in the conversation? I imagine he would still be in the conversation. But I was just talking about this at dinner tonight. It still feels like there's got to be 10 to 12 NBA players that, given that much usage, could get very similar numbers or the same numbers or not better. And, sure. And so as a result, Nick Young, if he had the green light and played 32 minutes a game, he could score 27 a game, I think, right? If he got the right amount of minutes and he could do it. NBA players are really good. And so I feel like there are a number out there, not a lot, but enough that you give them 40% usage rate, and they're going to be pretty damn close to triple-double, and they're all going to turn the ball over a lot, which is, par for the course. And as a result, here we are with Russ, getting all the accolades, and he's going to win it from what I can see. It looks like the votes that have kind of come out already look like it's pretty clear.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's just going to add fuel to the fire of the people that are wrong about who the MVP really should be. Which is basically anybody that doesn't think it's Kawhi or James Harden. Right. That's the camp I'm in. I'm gonna die on that hill. I just don't see how your team wins 47 games and you're the MVP. Whatever. This is why I don't like talking about the MVP, because I feel like I've said all this stuff 20 times.
Yeah, right. Well, we did, and we have, and I just needed to get some things off my chest from this video because of that. But oh, well, we'll see how that plays out. So far, people have been watching it, so I can't complain about that. But I can't believe it. We ran through all the games.
Yeah, I know. Not bad.
Not bad at all. That was a really good, hyper efficient way of getting through them, and with a lot of really good insights, Dave. So I think I'm anxious to see what's going to happen, in the game twos as we progress through this week. If we can kind of keep our sanity about us and stay awake. So you're going to watch. We'll be all in for the next several days.
That's right. So game 2 is where we'll see our first adjustments.
Yeah.
You're not seeing a lot of adjustments at half of the first game, but we're going to probably see a lot. I wonder who's going to overcorrect and who's going to just say, well, we're going to stick with what's got us here. And if I had to guess, I would say Toronto is in for an overcorrection.
You mean like changing the starting lineup?
Or just something that's they're going to go too far.
Okay.
At least to start. I would say Toronto may be in for an overcorrection, and then I wonder if Cleveland doesn't do something a little more drastic. And it may be schematic, it may not be personnel, but it may be that we see LeBron starting out guarding Paul George.
Please, and you know what? I don't even care. I get it. I get why they don't do that, but we deserve it. All I want to do is see those guys go back and forth. And that's all. Is it too much to ask? Is the question.
No, I mean we got a taste of it in that matchup at the end of the regular season between those two, and I just want more of that. Give me that for 6 games.
Absolutely. So, well, hopefully we get that. I'm glad that we could guard each other tonight and shut each other down, or I don't know what we did tonight.
I'm getting shots up, man. I'm just taking those assists from you.
Oh, okay, good. Well, I'm about to get hot, so look out. Well, we'll be back right here again. I guess we'll do another one this week. One of these days, we'll have a third podcast this week as well. So stay tuned as we ramp up all of our content. We'll have some more live shows up on YouTube and Facebook and Periscope and anywhere else. Maybe I'll do Twitch or something like that. We'll see. But it's just a touch of a button and we're there. So anyway, well, thanks Dave for coming on. Great breakdowns. I can't wait to see the game twos. And don't forget, sports fans, the B-Ball Breakdown, not channel or conversation. Are you in, Dave?
Yes, I am.